All right, so we take to the east. Let's give our praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bakakodash. Just giving our praises to the Most High, whose true name in ancient Hebrew is Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, which in ancient Hebrew is the Rakakodash. Double honors to the elders, GMS, who taught us his truth by the Holy Spirit. Honor to the brothers, risking their life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect, which will be the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, who make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, according to scripture and according to prophecy. The elect would be one third of those Israelites who in the last days will return back to the Most High to receive salvation. While the two-thirds of Israel who don't turn back to the Most High in time will be destroyed with America, and that's all according to prophecy. So we back with another live lesson through the mercy of Yahweh Bahashem Yahshua. And this is going to be Psalm of Asaph 74 part 2. So we come in out the book of Psalms, and in particular Psalm 74 was written by Asaph, and Psalms is all prophecy. So our ancient forefather was Asaph. He was more than just a king of Judah, he was a prophet as well, just like King David. He was more than a king, he was also a prophet. So we're going to pick up where we left off last week, Psalm 74, verse 12. This is Psalm 74 and 12. It say this. It say, for God is my king of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. You see that? The Most High, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, our God is our king of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. Now, let's deal with this first part. Because Asaph said he's my king, my God. That's a personal pronoun. So let's get this. This is the book of Matthew 22 and 32. Because really what it's saying, he's the God of Israel. That's why when you get this, Matthew 22:32, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Meaning what? He's giving counsel to the people of Israel. Meaning he has a personal relationship with the people of Israel. That's why when we get this in the book of Amos, I believe it's chapter 3, verse 1. Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I have brought from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. So the Lord have only known or dealt with his people Israel. It says, therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. And how did he only know Israel? By entering into a covenant with us, giving us his laws and commandments. That's why when we come here to the book of Psalms, I think that's 147, 19 and 20. It said he showeth his word unto Jacob. Then we got that. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And how did the Lord again deal with us um, as opposed to the other nations? Giving us his word, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. So yeah, he's created all things obey his will. That's Sirach 18. But on a personal, intimate level, he's only dealing with Abraham, Isaac, and the descendants of Jacob, which would be the people of Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. As for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And real quick, We're going to get this in Sirach 17:17. It say this. For in the division of the nations of the whole earth, he set up a ruler over every people. So the Lord set up these false gods, which are idols, and the kings to rule over the other nations. It goes on to say, but Israel is the Lord's portion. So the Lord chose to rule over, to give counsel to the people of Israel in the earth. He chose them personally. He chose to deal with Israel personally. What the fuck? Yeah, so the Lord chose Israel himself to deal with. He didn't set up no false gods, no false idols over Israel. Then when it says God is the God of the living and not the dead, what makes you alive? Is you dwelling with the Holy Spirit to have this word. Because the flesh profiteth nothing, but the spirit quickeneth. What the Lord say, the words that I speak are spirit and our life. So you receiving the words of Yahweh Bashim Hawashah, that's what makes you alive. And without this word, you will be considered to be dead. That's why when you get this in the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 16, it say this, the man that wandereth out the way of understanding shall remain in the dead. So when you wander away from the words of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, that places you in the congregation of the dead. Because pretty much when you leave this here, you a dead man walking. Let me see if I can get that real quick. This is the book of Baruch, chapter 4, verse 1. This is the book of the commandments of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, and the law that endureth forever. All that keep it shall come to life. So yeah, being with the word, that's what makes you alive. It says, but such as leave it shall die. Again, when you wander from the way of understanding, in the congregation of the dead. So when you leave this word, you got an hourglass over your head. So you the congregation of the dead. So the Lord ain't even dealing with all of Israel at this point, when you consider the stipulations. Israel, wandering from this word, they're the congregation of the dead too. And the other nations who the Lord has never dealt with, they already in the congregation of the dead. So yeah, when it says, God is the God of the living, that's when Israel is walking according to the word. So back to the book of Psalms 74:12. For Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai is my king of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. See, a Christian will read that and get tripped up because it said he's working salvation in the midst of the earth. Which when you read this in the NLT, they translate it incorrectly. It says bringing salvation to the earth. And that's not true. He's bringing salvation first. He's bringing salvation only to the people of Israel, but not even all of Israel, but to the elect. So again, working salvation in the midst of the earth. Now let's get this word in the midst. Because in the midst, it says in the midst, from among of a number of persons. So the Lord is bringing salvation to a number of persons among the people of Israel. So not bringing salvation to the earth. He's not the God or the Savior of all people, but to a number of people among the people in the earth, among the people of Israel. That's that 1/3 remnant. Shalom to daughter Yahweh. Shalom to Kabak Shana. Shalom to my brother Yawanathan Bakar. Abu Bahashim Yahweh Barakadah. And the brother, I'll sister to you and the brother Nathan. Midnight Gospel last night. I gotta finish it up though. So yeah. Back to the book of Psalm 74:12. For God is my king of old. We got that. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But only the descendants of Jacob who dwells with the word. Working salvation in the midst of the earth. Working salvation for the elect who are in the earth. Now let's continue on here. Because again, Asaph said, for Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai is my king of old. So, in other words, being a God of the people of Israel, let's get back to that topic. So we got he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But let's get this in the book of Isaiah 41 and 8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. So he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, meaning, God represents being a Lord, a master, a ruler. And for him to be our God, our master, our ruler, that means we his servants. And the Lord chose Jacob to be his servants in the earth. He didn't choose no other people. You can even be a servant of the Most High if you're not of the 12 tribes of Israel. Being of the 12 tribes qualifies you to be a servant of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. Believe it so, and you got to worship the Father in spirit and in truth, because that's what he requires. You can't worship him how you want to worship him. That's how that's what got our people effed up all throughout history. Trying to establish, their own form of righteousness. So yeah, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he chose Jacob to serve him. Now we're gonna get this in the book of Ephesians, chapter 1 and 4. But keep in mind, we just read he chose Jacob to be his servant. This is Ephesians 1 and 4. Hold on. Ephesians 1 and 4, okay. He chose Jacob to serve him. This is Ephesians 1 and 4. According as he hath chosen us. Who is this us? This ain't just anybody who picks up the book and reads this verse. So-called Edomite Christian pick it up and read, for God hath chosen us. No, you're not a part of that. This is a letter written to other people, and you can't include yourself on that. According as he hath chosen us. And who was chosen? He just said, Israel my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen. The same chosen in the New Testament. According as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world. So the Lord didn't just randomly choose Jacob in the book of Genesis, then randomly choose Israel in the book of Exodus. It's always been that way before the earth was ever created. Always been that chosen, first in the spirit before it played out here in the earth. According as he hath chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we, people of Israel, the descendants of Jacob, should be holy without blame before him in love. So yeah, in other words, he chose us before to be like him in the earth. We're supposed to be reflection of how about you out here in the earth. So let's continue now to the book of Psalm 74:13. I'm gonna start at verse 12 again. For God is my King of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. So it starts talking about Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai being our God and King. Then it starts talking about working salvation in the midst of the earth. So what we're about to read in verse 13 is going to go to the different salvations. It's going to sum it up. That's why I say, thou did divide the sea by thy strength. Excuse me. Hey, so let me get that again. God is my King of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. Thou did divide the sea by. That's what? That's our salvation when he saved us from the land of Egypt. It said, thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. And that's, what would that be? That would be concerning our last salvation out of America. Now we're going to explain all that. The Lord summed it up from the beginning to the end. So again, verse 13, thou did divide the sea by thy strength. And now it's the Lord working salvation in the earth as we came out of Egypt. So let's deal with that. This is the book of Exodus. We're going to start at 14 and 13. We're going to get the Lord dividing the sea. That was him working salvation, for the people of Israel. 14 and 13. Moses said unto the people, fear ye not. Why did he say that? Because Israel was crying out. It says, Moses said, fear ye not, stand still, a seed of salvation of the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahshua, which he will show you today. First salvation coming out the land of Egypt. They say, the Lord shall fight for you, you shall hold your peace. So that's what salvation is, being saved from our enemies. The Lord fighting for us. Let me get down to verse 16. And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they may go forward. But lift up thy rod and stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it. And we'll be getting Psalm 74:13. Thou did divide the sea by thy strength. Stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. So this is Psalm 74:12, working salvation in the midst of the earth. And the first one is when he divided the sea by his strength. So we're gonna continue. We're gonna get 21 through 22 to get the conclusion of that. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. Children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. See that? So walk through a sea, wall of water on the left and the right. What was the conclusion of that? Let's get this. Verse, thus the Lord saved Israel that day out the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. Israel saw great work, see, working salvation in the midst of the earth. They saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. The people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So that's Psalms 74:13. Thou did divide thy sea by thy strength. That's the first salvation. And then it took it all the way forward to our last salvation. When it says, thou breakest the heads of the dragon in the waters. Hey, that's a metaphor for the Lord taking down America. And not just America, but, you know, the rulership of Esau Edom. That's a metaphor. So again, thou breakest the heads of the dragon in the waters. So they go into all of that. But first, let me get this in the book of Isaiah, chapter 59, verse 1. Because the reason that the Lord said, thou did divide the sea by thy strength, he took it way back then, and he's fast forwarding to now. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Because people read these accounts and these miracles and think the Lord is out of business. Think, you know, the miracles of the Lord is limited to the ancient world. As if the Lord, you know, can't do nothing or won't do nothing in the future, which is now. But that's why when we get this in the book of Isaiah 59:1, behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, neither is his ear heavy, neither his ear heavy that it cannot hear. But again, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save. Shortened means to be limited. You know, something is out of reach. And people think as if the hand of the Lord is limited to the ancient world. That's why when you read these, people say that's the ancient days, or those are the Bible days. No, we forever in the Bible days. But yeah, people say those are the Bible days, as if the Lord can't do that again or won't do that again. But again, his hand is not shortened or not limited that it can't save, nor is his hand shortened that he can't destroy and bring judgment to the earth. And he's about to do both, bring judgment and salvation. So with that in mind, back to Psalm 74:13, thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Now, if you're going to show how this is dealing with our last salvation, this is, you know, dealing with America, the beast, NATO, Esau Edom, the so-called white man. So it said, thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. The waters are not literal. It's not a literal dragon coming up out the water. So we're going to deal with that first. This is the book of Daniel, 7 and 3. Because this dragon in the waters, what is that dealing with? That's dealing with the four great beasts. This is Daniel 7 and 3. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. And the sea is not literal waters. But we're going to deal with that. Now let's show that. This is the book of Revelation 17 and 15. The sea, the waters, it represents peoples. That's why we get this Revelation 17:15. He said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So the four great beasts that arose from the sea, meaning among the people in the earth, would arise four great empires before the return of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. Back to Daniel 7, we're going to jump down to verse 17 real quick to make it all very quick, straight to the point. These great beasts, which are four kings, see that? Four kingdoms, four empires, shall arise out of the earth. But see, nice, it say it arises out of the earth. So are the beasts, these kingdoms, are they rising from the sea? They rising from the literal water, or they rising from the earth? No, the sea, which is a metaphor from the people, meaning here in the earth, from among the Gentile nations, are going to arise four great kingdoms, four great empires. Oh, shit. Hey, forgive me, my arm cramping up for some reason. Fuck. So continuing on, keep in mind about those four beasts going to rise out of the earth. Now we're going to go back down to Daniel 7 and 7. And it say this. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast. This is the time of the fourth beast. This would be the last great empire in the earth before the return of Yahweh, before the return of our Lord Yahweh Shah, who the world calls Jesus. And behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, that represents the military, and devoured and break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, meaning he have his feet on everybody's necks. His policies, his tariffs, his military bases everywhere, sanctions, his media, his propaganda, his influence, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before, and it had 10 horns. So this fourth beast, keep in mind, 10 horns. Now we're going to link this up with the book of Revelation. Revelation 12 and 2. We're going to link this up with that dragon. Revelation 12 and 2, or is it 12 and 3? And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and this heaven would be rulership. And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. So we jump from the book of Daniel, linking that fourth beast with the dragon in Revelation by that phrase, it having 10 horns. But what we're showing is Psalm 74:13. Thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. We know the waters represent peoples and nations. And from the waters, from the sea, from the earth would arise a fourth beast that's likened into a dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns. Now, again, Psalm 74:13, it said, thou breakest the heads of dragons. So let's get this in Revelation 13, and I believe 2. Straight to the point, Revelation 13 and 3. And I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. You see that? One of the heads were wounded to death. But what did it get in Psalm 74:13? Thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. But keep in mind, One of the heads of this dragon was wounded. But we know the Lord is going to break the heads of this dragon. But let's get what that means for one of the heads to be wounded unto death. This is Revelation 17, straight to the point. We're going to get 9 and 10. And here is the mind which have wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains on which the woman sitteth. The woman represents America, the gray whore, mystery Babylon. And in summary, the dragon represents NATO. The represents Esau's empire, power structure here in the West. You know, United States, Europe, that whole power structure. But the seven heads are seven mountains. Mountains is a metaphor for kingdoms. Verse 10, there are seven kings. See that? Seven heads, seven mountains, seven kingdoms, seven rulerships. It says five are fallen. One is, the other is not yet. Not yet. When he cometh, he must continue a short space. But see that? It says among the seven kings or kingdoms, five are already fallen. But we got Revelation 13 and 3, when it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. That represent a head or a kingdom or the fall of a rulership. Then what we get in Psalm 74:13, thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. So one of the heads, one of the rulerships of the dragon that was wounded, the different kingdoms that had fallen concerning this dragon happened by events that played out in the earth, but it's ultimately all done by Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. That's why when we get the book of Daniel 2 and 21, it say this: he changeth the times and seasons. He removeth kings and set up kings. So it's Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah who caused kings and empires to fall. And it's also he who set up future kings and future empires. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. So when we got Revelation 13 and 3, I saw one of the heads as it were wounded unto death. Well, that was the Roman Empire that fell. Because what did it say after that? His deadly wound was healed. So the Roman Empire fell, but it was healed, meaning it came back in the power. That's why you have America. America's philosophy, education, system of government, the Senate, the architecture, the way of life, the way society set up. This is Rome all over again. But again, one of his heads were healed unto death. Again, the Roman Empire fell by events that played out in the earth, but ultimately it was Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai who did it, because he removed kings and set up kings. So the fall of the Roman Empire, that was the working of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. The Roman Empire coming back. America, NATO, Europe, also the working of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. But when you get Daniel 2 and 21 in the NLT, he controls the course of world events. So the rise and fall of kingdoms and rulerships and peoples, the Lord controls all of that. He removes kings, he set up kings. But again, you're going into Psalm 74:13. Thou did divide the sea by thy strength. That's the Lord saving us out of Egypt. Now we're talking about thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. And that dragon pretty much represents Esau, Edom here at the end. And again, it's the Lord who has wounded this dragon. The different rulerships of Esau, Edom rising, but then falling. You had one that will come back as America. Well, guess what? This one is going to fall too. So, where am I? Yeah, this one is going to fall too. As a matter of fact, let's get this word for head. When it says he wounds the heads of dragons in the waters. Because even that word head, You know, the word head for the dragon, even that word head is a metaphor. You can think about headquarters. So let's get this word for heads. It says the head, the summit, the upper part, the chief, the head of man, the top, the tip of mountains, chief head of a man, city, nation, or place, the head of a division or company, or rulerships of Esau Edom. During the time Esau been in power, you know, he had different headquarters or different heads of Esau being in power, represent the different heads of the dragons, which they've all failed. And when one will fall, another will rise up. And that represent Esau Edom staying in power. You know, when Greek failed, you had the Romans. Those are two heads. And then you had Germania Minor, Germania Major, them fell. And you had Spain, it fell. You had France, it fell. You had Britain, that fell. So that represents Esau reigning in succession. Hey, when some Edomites fall, they will stay in power, but the power or the chief will be headquartered somewhere else. Then when Britain fell, you had America rise up. So those are the different heads of the dragon. So now continuing on, we're gonna give verse 13 again and take it into verse 14. Thou did divide the sea by thy strength. That's our first salvation. Thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. So Esau has come to power in succession a number of times, one after another. But what it say? Thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. So the Lord also be causing Esau Edom to fall. And that's Malachi 1 and 4. Edom shall build, but I will throw down. So the Lord been throwing Esau Edom down. But it goes on to say in verse 14, thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. That's all the metaphor. The Lord didn't literally kill Leviathan. He's not going to ever kill Leviathan. Leviathan is one of the Lord's favorite creatures. When you read in the Apocrypha, I believe it's Second Ezra, maybe Ecclesiasticus, he made man or Enoch or the sons of God to rule the land. But he created Leviathan to rule the sea. So when it says thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, not actual Leviathan, the Lord's favorite creature. Hey, what we about to get, this Leviathan is a metaphor for that dragon. This is all the metaphor for Esau Edom at the end. The dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. And we about to prove it. Because when we go to this word Leviathan, in the Hebrew, it's a metaphor for something. So again, thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces. This is talking about the rulerships of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Because when you get this word Leviathan, it says a sea monster, a dragon. But when you come to the Strong's definition, it says also a symbol for Babylon. So this dragon, whom the Lord is smashing the heads to pieces, also called Leviathan sometime, it's a symbol for Babylon, which even in ancient Babylon, they worship dragons. They had dragon gods. And what would be Babylon today? It would be America, that red dragon. Now, and that's why you got a book called Baal and the Dragon in the Apocrypha. And I guess I'm gonna go here real quick. Let me see. I'm gonna see if I can get it straight to the point. Okay, so we're gonna start here. This is Baal and the Dragon 1 and 23. Yeah, pretty much the backstory here. Daniel was telling the king of Babylon, hey, your dragons are idols. They're no gods. Because what the people was doing, you know, the priests of Babylon, they would set food before this dragon as if the dragon was going to eat it. Then they would sneak in the middle of the night and eat the food themselves and be like, look, the dragon god has eaten this, he's accepted our sacrifice. he ate the offering. So Daniel was going to expose all that. And what it say? In the same place there was a great dragon, which they of Babylon worshipped. See that? A great dragon. Lining up with the great dragon, Revelation 12, 13, it will be Babylon all over again. But again, showing that Psalms 73, 74:13, thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. That's the Lord breaking up Esau, Edom's rulership. Through the process of time, thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, which that word Leviathan is a symbol for Babylon, not actual Leviathan, one of the Lord's favorite creations. But again, Bel and the dragon 1 and 23, and in that same place there was a great dragon, which they of Babylon worshipped. And the king said unto Daniel, wilt thou also say that this is of brass? So Daniel told the king, bro, that's brass. That ain't no God. That's no living power. Lo, he liveth, he eateth, he drinketh. Telling Daniel that this brass dragon, he lives, he eats, he drinks. Thou cannot say that he is no living God, therefore worship him. Then Daniel said unto the king, I will worship Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai my God, for he is the living God. But give me leave, O king, and I shall slay this dragon without sword or staff. See that? He said, I'm going to slay this dragon without sword or staff. So the Lord is using Daniel slaying this dragon without sword or staff as a foreshadowing of the Lord breaking the heads of this dragon to pieces. Esau, Edom's rulership here in the end. The king said, I give thee leave. Then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and did seed them together and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth. And so the dragon burst in sunder. And Daniel said, these are the gods ye worship. You see that? You keep going. So Daniel made a fool of the gods of Babylon, the dragons they worship. And the Lord gonna make a fool of this place. And then even in the spirit, we slain this dragon. You know, America, NATO, without sword or staff. We taking this place down without sword or staff. But with the spiritual sword and the spiritual staff would be this word. We taking this place down in the spirit through Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. But the Lord gonna physically take this place down and erase it off the earth. So what Daniel did to the dragon, blew it to pieces, and the Lord gonna blow this dragon to pieces with the nuclear destruction. And we breaking this place to pieces with the word. The Lord gonna cause them nukes to drop, but this is spiritual nuke right here. And it's dropping every day when brothers drop them lessons. When they of Babylon heard that, they took great indignation and conspired against the king, saying, the king has become a Jew, and he hath destroyed Baal. He hath slain a dragon and put the priest to death. So they came to the king and said, deliver us Daniel, or else we will destroy thee and thine house. So after that, Daniel got cast into the lion's den, but you know how that played out. The Lord came through. So let me get this again, Psalm 74, 14. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces. You know, now this is a metaphor for Babylon here at the end, which Babylon is a symbol, you know, Leviathan is a symbol for Babylon because Babylon worships dragons. And that's why even in America, everybody got dragon tattoos, dragon statues, dragons all over the place, showing you that this is Babylon all over again. Let's continue with verse 14. Thou gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. So this dragon is going to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Meaning what? The other nations, they're going to devour this dragon. Now let's deal with that. This is the book of Revelation. We're going to go straight to the point. I think it's Revelation 17 to 16. In the 10 horns which thou sowest upon the beast which represents Europe, the European Union. D shall hate the whore, that's America. The great whore, you think about the Statue of Liberty, that's a great whore. And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh. See that? That's Psalm 74:14. Thou gavest him and humor her. They represent Esau, Edom's rulership, especially America. Thou gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. The wilderness will be the rest of the world, dealing with the other nations. These shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. See that? So her flesh is going to be eaten, not literally, but consumed in the fire. That's why when we come to the book of Zechariah, straight to the point, 14 and 12. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord shall smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem, which also includes 2/3 of the people of Jerusalem that strive against his truth. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. Their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. So that's how the great whore is going to have her flesh eaten and be devoured by fire. Going all the way back to how Daniel destroyed that dragon idol without sword and staff. What did it say? It burst into pieces. That's what the Lord is going to cause to happen here in America. The place is going to burst to pieces. And then let me see if I can get this real quick. And it's not going to just be, the 10 horns, Europe, that devours her flesh, but it's going to be the rest of the world. That's when you get this in the book of Job 20 and 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. So when they about to fill their new world order, or, complete their new world order, every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. See that? Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Now let's get this word for wicked. Which, when you read that word wicked, it's not literally talking about the wicked, but it says a laborer, a sufferer, a workman. Because we know what? Isaiah 14, he who ruled the people in anger. So we'll get to that in a minute. So this word for wicked, a laborer, or sufferer. So everybody who's working, everybody who's suffering under the hand of Esau, Edom, in particular America. Because America has went throughout the earth, enslaved everybody in one way or another. But every hand of the wicked, meaning the laborers, the sufferers, the people who's suffering because of America's dominance. Every hand of the wicked, meaning the other nations, shall come upon him. So everybody gonna eat this great whore and devour her flesh. How are their hands gonna come upon America? Everybody gonna push that button. And that's why when you get this, Isaiah 14 and 6, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted and none hindereth. Hey, so everybody who Esau is bullying or trying to bully, all their hands gonna come on them. And that's why we gonna get this Isaiah 33. Woe to thee that spoilest, and thou was not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt treacherously not. When thou shalt cease to spoil you, thou shalt be spoiled. When thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. The nation's gonna deal treacherously with this place and spoil this place. By everybody, invading this place and shooting them nukes off at it. Hey, shalom to the sister Rebecca Ophir. Hey, and shalom to the brother Ephraim Ban Yasha Allah. Yahweh Bashim outside Bragadam, y'all. Get the phone up out the shade or out the sun. So continuing on. Continuing on, again, Psalms 74, 13. Thou did divide the sea by thy strength. We went into that. Our first salvation coming out the land of Egypt. Thou breakest the heads of dragons in the wilderness. We went into that. Excuse me, breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan to pieces. This is dealing with our last salvation, the Lord destroying this great horde, the red dragon, dealing with our last salvation. Now, when we come here to the book of Psalms 110, we're going to start at verse 5. The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. So the kings of Babylon, the kings of the red dragon. He shall judge among the heathen. He shall fill the places with the dead bodies. He shall wound the heads of many countries. So going back to Psalm 74, 13 and 14, thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. Well, that's the Lord wounding the heads of many countries, such as Europe, North America, Asia, etc. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan to pieces. You know, these heads represent countries, which you already got. The heads represent different kingdoms and different empires that would rise throughout the earth. But it's telling you that the Lord is going to wound the heads over many countries. Which in the NLT it reads, he will shatter heads over the whole earth. So just like Daniel shattered that dragon, and the Lord gonna break these nations and these empires to pieces. That's why when you read Revelation, maybe 19, maybe 12, he's gonna have many crowns. And he's gonna take these people, he's gonna take these people out of power. Because here in the end, all other nations, they got some kind of power, some kind of dominion here in the earth. The Lord gonna take everybody out of power. And just like Joshua, whose name in the Hebrew is also Yahweh, he took out everybody. Well, the Lord gonna do the same. So when it reads again, Psalm 74:13, thou breakest the heads of dragons in the waters. Through the process of time, the Lord has been breaking up Esau Edom's rulership. But when one will fall, another will rise up. And one still consists even to this day. Well, the Lord is coming back personally to finish the job. Hey, to lay this dragon to rest once and forever. So continuing on, we're going to move on to the book of Psalms 74 and 15. Thou did cleave the fountain and the flood. Thou driedest up mighty rivers. So yeah, that could be literal. The Lord can cause the flood. He can hold back the rains. He can split the sea. He can flood the earth. And the same is true for the people. Because the waters can represent the people as well. Goes on to say, as a matter of fact, let's get this real quick. Because we have kind of been quoting it. Sirach 18:3. Who governeth the whole world with the palm of his hand. In all things obey his will, but he's the king of all, by his power dividing holy things among them from profane. So all things obeys the will of the Most High. He governs or controls all the reality, things we see, things we don't see, the palm of his hand. Now continuing on, this is Psalms 74:16 through 17. The day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Thou hast set all the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. That is not as straightforward as it seems. Those two verses saying a whole lot. But pretty much showing he governs the whole world with the palm of his hand, all things obey his will. And this is way deeper than the Lord controlling summer and winter, day and night. It's way deeper than that. So we're gonna get into that to the best of our ability. So we're gonna deal with verse 16 again. The day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. So the day, the light, and the sun is really talking about Yahweh Shai. Yeah, the Lord controls the day, He controls the night. He created day, He created night. He separated darkness from the light. That's all literal and true out the book of Genesis. But when it says thou hast prepared the light and the sun, that's a metaphor for Yahweh Shai. Now let's go into that. This is the book of Job 38, verse 12. Again, he prepared the sun and prepared the light. This is Job 38 and 12. Thou hast commanded the morning since thy days. Excuse me. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place. See that? Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place. So it talks about the day in the morning, but it said cause him to know his place. His is a then you know it's talking about somebody. Read this again. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place. This is that same light in the sun who the Lord has prepared in the book of Psalm 74:16. Now let's show that in the book of Revelation 22 and 16. I'm gonna read all this all the way again, all the way through real quick. Psalm 74:16, the day is thine, the night also is thine. Yeah, literal day and night, light and darkness, but it's deeper than that. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Excuse me. The light and sun being Yahweh Shai. And this is again Job 38 and 12. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days? That morning represents Yahweh Shai. And caused the day spring, again, Yahweh Shai, to know his place. And this is Revelation 22 and 16, I believe. I, Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus, have sent my angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. See that? Yahweh Shai said he's the bright and morning star. What's the morning star? That's the sun. What the sun represent? The daytime. Going back to the book of Psalm 74:16. The day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. And what's been prepared, you know, what we being prepared for? That bright morning star, which is Yahweh Shai. Going back to the book of Job 12 and 38, or 38 and 12. Hast thou commanded the morning? What Yahweh Shai say? I'm that bright and morning star. That's why it says, has thou commanded the morning? And it say nothing about the Lord commanded the night. But again, has thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place. Verse 13, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it. And what Yahweh Shai is going to do, he's going to shake the wicked out of the earth. That's why the scriptures say the powers of heaven shall be shaken. This wicked rulership going to be shaken out of the earth by Yahweh Shai, who is the morning, who is the bright and morning star, who is the light, who is the sun. So if Yahweh Shai represents the day, that bright and morning star, if he represents the sun, what does the wicked represent? It represents the night, the time of darkness. And we're going to show that. That's why when you come back to the book of Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, 18 and 1, he that liveth forever created all things in general. So yeah, the Lord created the night, he created the day. He created light, he created darkness. And that's why now when we come to the book of Ecclesiasticus, we're going to get 33 and 15. So look upon all the works of the Most High. There are two and two, one against another. So yeah, the works of the Lord are two and two, one against another. You got the day, you got the night. You got light, you got darkness. And the Lord used the night and the day, or the light and the darkness, as an analogy to describe the righteous and the wicked. Because Yahweh Shai, that bright morning star, the sun, the light, that represent the righteous, while the night or the darkness represents the wicked. So again, look upon all the works of the Most High. There are two and two, one against another. That's why it goes on to say, the verse above it, a good is set against evil, life against death. So it's the godly against the sinner, and the sinner against the godly. Just like the day is set against the night, and the light is set against darkness. So even in the book of Genesis, when it said the Lord separated the darkness from the light, that wasn't just night and day. That wasn't, just talking about the sun and moon. That represents all of his works. Night and day, light and darkness, the godly from the wicked, the righteous from the unrighteous. Yahweh Shai, that bright and morning star. So that makes Esau the night, the time of darkness. And again, the Lord used, night and day or light and darkness for an analogy to describe his works. Yeah, so back to the book of Psalm 74:16. The day is thine, the night is thine also. Again, that goes way beyond the time of day and the time of night. Goes way beyond light and darkness. But when you go deeper, it represents, good against evil, the godly against the wicked. Which that light, that bright and morning star, being Yahweh Shai himself. So that makes Esau, he's the Lord used the darkness in the night as an analogy to describe the wicked. Verse 17, thou hast set all the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. So now we're about to go into that, the summer and the winter. Again, which could be an analogy for the godly and the wicked. Because in the summer, hey, everything blossoms. It's full of life. Yahweh Shai said the words that I speak are spirit in our life. He said he came to bring life more abundantly. But the thief comes to do what? Steal, kill, and destroy. And even in the winter, everything dies off. But again, Psalm 74:17, thou hast set all the borders of the earth, thou hast made summer and winter. So yeah, the Lord, and that's the thing. Letting you know it's not talk about just literal seasons. Because what about the fall and what about the spring? Why the Lord ain't mention them? Because it's deeper than that. Now we're going to go back here. We went here earlier. This is the book of Daniel 2:21. He changes the times and the seasons. Yeah, the Lord controls summer, spring, fall, winter, etc. He changes the times and the seasons, but it's deeper than that. The times and the seasons could go into rulerships. He removes kings instead of up kings. That proves it. The change in the seasons is like the changing of rulerships here on the earth. Every nation of people has had their time here on the earth. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, knowledge to them that no understanding. But yeah, change of the times and seasons. He set the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. But let's deal with the borders. Because let me go here real quick. This is the book of Job 14 and 5. Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. Another word for bounds will be border. That's why Psalm 74:17, thou hast set all the borders of the earth. The borders will be the bounds or the boundaries. Thou hast made summer and winter. So even the literal seasons, the days are determined. Your calendar has days marked for the beginning of summer, for the end of summer, for the beginning of winter, for the end of winter. That's why Job 14 and 5 say, seeing his days are determined. Just like the days of the seasons are determined, well, the days for different rulerships are predetermined as well. The number of his months are with thee, thou has appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So again, the days of the different rulerships are predetermined. The Lord has a start date and an end date for the different kingdoms in the earth. And the Lord has set the bounds or the borders that he cannot pass. Whatever day, America is not going to go one second or one day past that set date. Kind of like the days of the seasons on the calendar. This is the beginning of summer, this is the end of summer. Same case with the changing of times and seasons and kingdoms and rulerships here in the earth. So again, Psalm 74:17, thou hast set all the borders of the earth. That would be the bounds or the borders, it represents the changing of times and seasons. Thou hast made summer and winter. And again, even that is a metaphor for the godly and the wicked. The godly being like into the summer, bringing life more abundantly, and the winter represents the wicked, come to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's why the Lord chose to use summer and winter, but not the spring and the fall. Because it's bigger than seasons at that point. Summer and the winter, it goes into time and the change in the times. See if I got anything else on that. Yeah, that's it. That's it for today. That took a lot of brain power out of me. But let me see who all on here. Hey, so I thank everybody that tuned in and will tune in. Let's give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Bakakwadash. Hey, double honors to the elders who taught us this truth by the Holy Spirit. Honors to the brothers who escape life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect. Um, those who fear and call on the name, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. We'll be out tomorrow, Lord willing. Till next time, Shalom.